Hello, my name's Jessica and these are the horror books that I read in 2021. This video is going to include the books that I read as well as the manga that I read. And there is a major spoiler warning. I will be talking about the plot of these books. So if you don't want a spoiler, then don't watch the video. The books that I'm going to be talking about will be in the description. I don't know if I'm going to do timestamps. I haven't worked that out yet, but we'll see. Okay. I'm going to start with the Stephen King that I read this year, because those are like the written books that I read. So the first one I read was Pet Semetary, which I loved. Oh my god, it's one of my favourite books now. I loved everything about it. I love reading Stephen King because I like reading from the male perspective. I don't get to do that very often, and it's just nice to read from the male perspective because I'm a girl, I don't know what it's like to be a man, so reading from the male perspective kind of closes that gap and makes it more understandable. I loved the plot. I thought the plot was phenomenal. The ending, while it wasn't my favourite ending, I'm not too sure what else he could have done with it, so I think the ending is perfectly good for the book. And I loved it. I loved the build-up that it had into part 2, and I thought part 2 of the book was absolutely fantastic. Oh my god, just thinking about what it was like when I read it, it's just phenomenal. Like, when his son died and they were at the funeral and he fought his wife's father, that was amazing, and the scene and the build-up to when he dug up his son's grave was just amazing. I loved it so much, and it was just... King writes these scenes and the thoughts of the characters that make you think, oh my god, that is so human. Like, when he digs up his son's body and wraps it in tarp, he puts the body in the passenger seat of the car, but he doesn't know if he's put the body face forward or faced against the seat, and it's just like a horrific thought, but completely amazing. Then I read Salem's Lot, which I didn't love as much. This was King's second book that he ever wrote after Carrie, and I thought that the book was quite good overall, but I wasn't a big fan of the ending. Mostly because I didn't really feel that there was an ending. It just kind of built up to this massive point of these two people about to kill loads of vampires, and we didn't get to see them kill the vampires, which I would have loved to have seen. I do think that the Dracula type character was a bit cringe, but this book was written years and years before I was born, so I don't really blame him. It was quite lengthy. This copy's about 730 pages, and I stopped reading it about page 630, just because I wasn't really sure what these ending sections were supposed to be, and I got quite bored, and there was other stuff I wanted to read, so I just moved on, called it a day, but I did enjoy it. I won't read it again, but I enjoyed it. And then for King, I read this in September. I read Christine. I got this copy from a charity shop down my high street, and I wasn't really sure what to expect going in. I mean, it's a book about a killer car. I didn't have high hopes, but I think he played it off pretty well. I felt really bad for Arnie, who was kind of overtaken by the thought of the car. I felt bad for his family. I felt bad for his girl. I felt bad for his best friend. I felt bad for everyone, really. It was a crazy book with these... I don't know how he comes up with this plot. I never in my life would have imagined it. But the book did have a kind of brief paragraph talking about substance abuse, and I thought it was really moving. Then for King, I finally read The Outsider. I picked this up from charity shop that I saw it in because my mum got me If It Bleeds for my birthday, and I heard that you're supposed to read The Outsider first, so that's what I did. I haven't read If It Bleeds yet, but I think The Outsider was pretty good. unlike King's other books I've read, this felt very finished. Like the plot came to a complete close, the characters were at a good point where they went their separate ways again, and I really enjoyed that. I liked that not everyone's life was ruined. Like, some people made out alive and in one piece, and that was nice. I found it a bit weird reading about this kind of like old ghost story come real life, but then again, I wasn't expecting a like true crime book because it's King. But I don't know, I guess I was kind of looking forward to a whodunit mystery. I like mystery books. But nonetheless, I loved The Outsider, not just because it has an orange cover, but because it was a good book and it felt finished, which I liked. So those are the books that I read. Next, I read some works by Junji Ito. The first work I read is Uzumaki, but I don't have my copy of it. I love Uzumaki to the earth and back. I think it's fantastic. I love how creative he was with the plot. I love how many different like short stories there were inside. I love the Jack in the Box. I loved the snail people. I loved the hair that curls and she has to cut it off. I love the ending where the spiral, the town turns into a spiral. I love how they have to go underground into that massive kind of underground city. I thought that was really interesting and really creative, and it's my favourite Junji Ito work to this day. I love it. Then I read Ghoul. I didn't love this as much as I loved Uzumaki, but it was definitely creative and I've definitely read nothing like it before. I liked it. I'm definitely weird. I felt really bad for like every human in it. It's just really sad. Well, it's not sad. It's really weird. I don't remember the ending, but I'm pretty sure it was a good ending. I liked it. What else is there to say? Next, I read Tomie. Didn't finish it, but I read most of it. I hear a lot of hype about Tomie. I do think it was a good book, but by the end, I feel it was getting a little bit repetitive because, she kept dying and coming back to life. That's what the book's about, but for me, it was just a little bit too long to remain suspenseful and enjoyable. But it was still good. Next, I don't have the copy with me, but I read Venus in the Blind Spot, which is a short story collection. I loved all the short stories in it. My favourite ones were Venus in the Blind Spot, Billions Alone, Human Chair. There was another one, I can't remember what it was called. But I think that was fantastic. I loved it. I loved how the stories weren't too long. They were just long enough to pique your interest. They were definitely horror stories, and I loved them. I thought the artwork was fantastic as always, and yeah, that's up there with Uzumaki. That's one of my favourites. Almost most recently, I read Lovesickness. I picked up a copy because I loved the front cover. I thought it was beautiful, and the story was pretty good. I don't remember too much about it. It's been a little while since I read it. I think it was pretty decent. It didn't have as many grotesque images, but I enjoyed it. I probably won't read it again, but the story was good. Finally, by Junji Ito. I'm not sure this really counts as horror, but it's Junji Ito and he's a horror writer, so I finally read his Cat Diary Yonamu, and I loved it. I thought it was hilarious, actually, to see his art style written in kind of like a home-telling comedic way. I thought it was fantastic. It's a very, very short book. It's a brilliant read. I think it's just a nice, light touch from the usual horror stories that Ito writes. I really liked it. If you see a copy, I suggest you pick it up. It was really nice. And it just made a nice little change from what I usually read. That's all the Junji Ito I read this year. Got kind of 2-ish things left. This is The Kingdom of the Gods. This is what inspired Kingdom, the Korean TV show. I really enjoyed the TV show. It's one of my favourite TV shows. 2 of my favourite genres, Korean historical dramas, and zombies put in one. What wasn't to love? I thought it was great, honestly. Kingdom of the Gods not as great plot-wise. The art is fantastic in this book. The art is gorgeous. It's different to Junji Ito, of course, because every artist draws differently, and I think both are beautiful in their own ways, but I thought this was just phenomenal. Actually, the Kingdom of the Gods is only like this section of the book. This section is another story called Burning Hell. And these are the authors, by the way. I don't know how to pronounce their names, and I don't want to do it wrong, but creds to them. It's still a really good manga. And if they produced anything else, I'd probably pick it up, yeah. Finally, I read the first 6 volumes of Tokyo Ghoul, which I'm really loving. I'm still reading it in a minute. I think it's a really great manga. I love it. I love the storyline. I love the characters. I love the character developments. I'm just going to be sad to see it finish. I'm definitely going to pick up Tokyo Ghoul Ari. I'm going to get the box set if I can. If I can't, I'll just buy the volumes whenever I see them. But I think the story is fantastic. I love the covers and the artwork. I think it is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love the artwork in this so much. And I love the covers. They're so beautiful. And the story is just, it works really well together. I don't know whose side I'm on, really. I feel like humans are kind of demonized in this, but then obviously ghouls are demonized all the time by humans. So it's a bit, what side do you want? I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. I'm going to continue to read it. And I know Tokyo Ghoul Ari is longer, but I still really want to read that. So yeah, those are all the horror books I read this year. I loved every single one. Definitely going to reread a few of them. And yeah, horror is one of my favourite genres, so love a good horror book.